I'm Jason Takhtadjian, and welcome to yet another episode of the talk show. Today, I'm joined by a very, very special guest. He's a screenwriter, he's a producer. You know him from his work in the box office hit Sinners. Sev Ohanian. Sev, how are you doing today? It is an honor to have you here in the studio virtually and to meet you for the first time.
It's great to be here, Jason, man. Thank you for having me, bro. And thank you for doing this just generally. It makes me so happy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This has kind of been my passion project to just kind of see how far I can go with this show. And I'm so glad that I have somebody like you on the show, especially with the timing of you being here and us talking about this, because recently Sinners won a lot at the Golden Globes, and you were there, man. Tell me first and foremost, just about overall that whole experience being at the Golden Globes and kind of taking that all in moment by moment.
It was really nice, man. We worked really hard on that film. I mean, everyone works hard on every movie, but Sinners in particular, it felt like it was such a massive undertaking by everybody who worked on the film. The actors, of course, the crew, everyone from the producers like myself and my partners, all the way down to the PAs. When you work on films, you kind of sometimes get a sense on whether it's going to be a good one or whether you got something special. We really all felt that with Sinners, but you never know for sure whether it's going to connect with audiences, whether it'll do well in theaters, for example, or in the case of this past weekend, whether it'll get recognized by, these award committees. And the Golden Globes is a big deal. It's a lot of international reporters and critics and journalists who have a real passion for filmmaking. So the fact that they liked our film enough to nominate it for what they did, and the fact that we were able to walk home with a few trophies, I mean, it's all good. It's all amazing.
It's pretty amazing indeed. I mean, you mentioned something before I go into more about the Golden Globes, just about the movie Sinners. You said like when it comes to any movie, right? When it comes to anything that deals with art, you're kind of relying on, how the audience is going to react to that. I mean, for you personally, what was it that kind of was the indication for you that, hey, this is resonating with the audience?
Man, that's a good question. Sometimes you could just feel it by being on set, and whether you're watching through the monitor, that the video cam monitors that we have, or whether you're just seeing live with your own eyes what the actors are doing. This was definitely one of those times. And beyond that, our incredible writer, director, my fellow producer, Ryan Coogler, this is the first time he was going to go out and make an entirely original movie where it was not based on a comic book. It wasn't based on another film franchise. It wasn't based on a true story. It came entirely from his heart, from his soul. It's an homage, it's an ode to his family, to his ancestors, to his late great Uncle James. And I think you could feel that like spirituality in the writing. You could feel it in the way we all work together. Um, Genuinely, Jason, it was something that was driving all of us beyond just the commitment to wanting to do right by each other. And I don't often talk this way, but with this particular film, we all felt that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really profound. I mean, it just really comes to light, the audience reaction was so massive for a film like this, and just parlays with kind of the feeling that the people who worked on the movie were also saying, hey, this movie is special. It's not just something that we're just putting together. So going back to that night in the Golden Globes, right? Whenever you guys win and you get up on stage, you get the trophy in your hand. I mean, what's that feeling like? Getting the weight of the trophy, looking at the crowd from the opposite angle, and the lights are shining at you. Just take me through that moment.
Oh man. I it was really nice. It was, I think, what I'm really happy about, Jason, was the fact that we had the entire cast up there with us. My wife Natalie Kasabian, who was sitting with us at one of our tables, I later found out, because this is a relatively new award that the Golden Globes has instituted, and I later found out that Natalie was like, "Go, go, everyone, run, go!" and like she was like pushing the cast like, "Get on there!" And it really kind of reminded me, even all the way back to my first collaboration with Ryan Coogler. Ryan and Zinziar, the producer, was a very low budget independent film called Fruitvale Station. That is a film we made right out of film school. It was my first, real movie. It was Ryan's first time writing and directing a film. And that movie didn't get to the Golden Globes, but we got it to Sundance. That was where we premiered our film in Park City, 2013. And oftentimes when movies would premiere at Sundance, the filmmaker, the director would go up, in front of the crowd right after the screening and maybe answer some questions. And Ryan, if I remember correctly, Ryan insisted that all of us go up with him. And it was like 50 people, like cast, crew, producers, everybody. And it just kind of reminded me that um, these things are such collaborative efforts and you kind of form a family oftentimes. And I just felt so good that we were all up there. Like that it just felt right.
That's so neat. I mean, you say that it's a family, feeling when you guys are all together and you guys work on everything together. Specifically about Ryan, I wanted to ask you a couple questions about him. What that relationship is like between you and him, and doesn't that goes all the way back to USC days, right?
It does. Yeah, I met Ryan at USC where we were both studying film for as our graduate degrees, and we had some really good mutual friends, and I think you kind of generally get to know everyone in your he was I think one semester ahead of me, but you kind of always get to know everybody. And
Yeah.
he remembers our first encounter, I think, better than I do, but I think I remember it too, which was I was working at the front desk of where people would book sound stages. Those are like the big black warehouses that people go and film their student films in. And he had come by to visit his friend who was my coworker. And I think he remembers that I had just cast Danny Trejo, who's a really, talented actor, character actor, to be in one of my web series that I was producing on the side. And I think Ryan has said, like, oh, I remember you were just so enthusiastic and passionate, and the fact that you guys were able to lock in this pretty big actor for a small project. And beyond that, I remember watching his student films, which are always amazing. And I think you know this. I had made an Armenian film on my own before SC called My Big Fat Armenian Family.
Yes.
When I was at school, I was a little bit embarrassed by the movie. I'm ashamed to admit it, but at the time I felt like the film was a little bit less than because it was very cheap. It was my dad's home video camera. I had no crew, no lighting, no, quote unquote real actors, no Danny Trejo. And it was also in Armenian. It was about Armenian stuff. And now that I was at this fancy school, I was kind of one of the younger students. So I always kind of felt a little bit of an underdog, and I was a little bit reluctant to share much about the film, let alone not wanting to seem like I was bragging that I made a movie. Ryan somehow, some way ended up being the first non-Armenian in my life who saw the movie. He came to my parents' house in Glendale and one night, and I put the movie on, and I was nervous what he would think, and he loved it. And beyond that, he related to it. This African American man who grew up in America with fully American parents saw his own community, his own culture, that intersection that we're all human together. We all share the same condition in certain ways and not all. And ironically, when I first read Sinners, the draft of Sinners, if you've seen the movie has this really powerful epilogue that Ryan had Michael B. Jordan's character Stack say something along the lines of, "For a few hours, we were free." And I literally choked up. This is me in my bedroom, like reading the script, and I literally started like crying. And I remember I called Ryan immediately just to talk about how lovely the script was and how great it was. And we were all, at the time we were developing and giving notes and stuff like that. But I really connected to this story because of that ending. Even though it's a story about these Black Americans who were in the Mississippi South in 1930s dealing with sharecropping and all the racial tension that they had to overcome, but the film was in a lot of ways about how for a few hours they found that respite, that freedom in each other to enjoy to be human beings. It completely related to me as an Armenian about our own people and how we've had to overcome our own oppression and subjugation, and how we choose to, even to this day, I feel like, over index on having fun, on celebrating one another, on drinking and eating and dancing. And so to me that connection is ironically the way he connected my film is kind of how I connected his film. And I think that has led us to having a deeper connection as collaborators and partners.
Wow. So that was really like the spark, right, between you and Ryan as far as your friendship goes, and that's now led to what, years and years of you guys working together and you learning from him, him learning from you. I mean, what's one thing about Ryan that you would say separates him from other directors?
I'm gonna go in a crazy different direction. There's no question of the fact that Ryan's talented and he's a hard worker. I imagine that much is evident, but he also knows how to not take himself or the work too seriously. One example I'll give is, and I think I've only maybe said this once before, when we were filming Sinners in particular, it was a really stressful shoot, like almost all of them are. But in this particular one, there was like a week or two that it just got really tense in the sense that we had schedules and budgets and a lot to overcome, maybe not enough time to do it all right. So every day, every second counted. And oftentimes, we'd be running around on set, getting things ready, making sure the next shot's ready and putting out fires for the next day. And and whenever I would approach Ryan with either a question or an update or an ask of him or whatever, I would quickly want to get okay, here's the latest thing because sometimes Ryan will shoot a take and then we'll cut, they'll make some adjustments, and then you might have 20 seconds to have a quick chat with him before we get into the next take. And I would want to jump right into the work and be like, okay, this is what happened. Here's what I think we should do. Hey, I think that problem we solved. Hey, by the way, that last take, maybe consider XYZ for the next take. I try and squeeze all that in. Ryan would be like, before we talk about anything, I'd love to see a picture of your son. Because at the time, Natalie and I had a 1.5-year-old son, and Ryan would insist on, even though we had such a limited window of time to get to this really crucial work, he's like, let's just take a quick, show me your phone. Let me get the latest picture of your little toddler. And it was really smart of him, man, because it just kind of forced us to have a little dopamine hit. Just looking at a cute kid. Obviously, my son, I love him. Ryan loves him. Like Zinzi, our partner, loves him. Like just the moment of just like looking at a kid, laughing at the image, and then we would get to work.
Right.
And I remember just like, man, like he's so smart because he knows that just regulates him, it regulates me, right? Kind of keeps the vibe chill, and it also reminds us of what's important. Obviously, any job is stressful and important, especially one that had the time crunches we did. But does it really matter in the grand scheme of things versus your family versus the love you have for each other and life period?
Yeah.
And I think that is what I often will think about with Ryan. Obviously, he works hard. Obviously, he's got incredible taste and he's such a great collaborator. He's a great visionary. All of those things too. But that human side of him is one that I really value. And I know that I'm not speaking for myself. This applies to all of our collaborators who know this about him, including our actors.
That is so neat. Especially in the work that we do, sometimes we get so caught up in our work that we just forget about time, right? So hours on hours on hours go, and it's important to, like you said, have that dopamine hit or just like disconnect a little bit, right? You got to be human at the end of the day so that the work can be good. So, I'm sure that's definitely helped you out as well and everybody else too. And I'm sure Ryan has had that experience in the past that's like led him to be like, all right, we need to we need to just, give ourselves a chance to be humans.
Yeah.
That's so neat. I wanted to go back to talking about my big fat Armenian family because I did plan on to asking you about that, and you brought it up beforehand. But you did mention that that was something that early on you were a little bit embarrassed by because of the quality. Just was that because of what people said, or was that kind of like an internal battle that you had?
It was 100% not because of what people said. It was entirely self-inflicted. I mean, this is me being really honest and vulnerable here. And by the way, I'm about to give a TEDx talk on Friday, January 23rd at USC for the Little Armenia TEDx group. But I think I'm planning on touching on this. I, being an Armenian American immigrant, it's the best thing ever, right? I feel lucky. But growing up as one of those, that you don't often see other Armenians, at least when I was growing up, like being successful in film careers.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of pressure for me, again, self-inflicted, to take a more stable job, doctor, lawyer, anything that any of the classic immigrant success stories. I kind of stumbled into filmmaking almost by accident. It wasn't really something that I planned for, but I made these little short videos. They got so popular and kind of beloved around the world that I made another one and again and eventually ended up writing that movie genuinely not because it almost because I didn't know what I was doing is how I was able to make that happen. And it was such an incredible success and I'm so grateful to the Army community who showed up and supported me in not just a financial way, but genuinely the encouragement, the empowerment that I felt from that reception, that when I got into USC, which is at the time, and I think still to this day, but considered the number one film school, I was the only Armenian at the time there. And it was, a lot of really talented people who have connections or grew up in the industry or had money or whatever it may be. so there was a part of me that didn't want to flaunt that I had done this. Again, part of it was I just don't want to be acting like a bragger, but genuinely it was like, oh, it's in Armenian. I shot it on my mini DV camera. It wasn't like HD, or it wasn't proper lighting. It wasn't fancy. It was so down. It was so humble that I have since realized that that is my strength, that I come from this community. That is one of my particular advantages, just like anyone who can find and tap into their own culture has that advantage of any ethnicity, of any background. And it's really made me even more grateful to that community. And it's really made me, I think, gravitate towards projects that, like My Big Fairy Family, like Sinners, has a particular connection to a culture or an ethnicity or a background. And a movie that I made with my wife called Searching, we chose to cast an incredible actor named John Cho, who's Korean American, and none of us are Korean on the movie. None of us, the story didn't necessarily call for that, but we like the idea of highlighting and centering people from certain ethnicities that you don't often see on screens, because it just makes it feel more special, more unique, more specificity. So I think it's all connected for me. Yeah.
Absolutely. For me, it's like growing up as an Armenian, I'm only 27 and I still gravitate towards, successful Armenians, but it just feels like, especially in the diaspora, especially in, the specific careers that we're in, for me as a journalist, there are far and few between. We have Araxia Karapetian, we have Alina Abovian, we've had guys on ESPN like Tim Kirkjian, but just about outside of that, that's when you start getting into murky water as far as, people who've done it like way in the past. Right now there's a lot of people who are doing it who are older than me and, I look up to them, but, you know, when I was in high school, let alone in college, it was very difficult. I didn't even know anybody except for like one other classmate. I went to college in Vegas. Luckily, Vegas had a growing Armenian population, and I had only one other Armenian with me in the journalism program over there. So I can relate to you on that.
That's awesome, Jason. Look at you now, man. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean,
I,
for me, I can take it a step further and tell you, I also relate in the level of, that pressure that we get as Armenians, as kids, to do good and go for the big jobs as like a doctor, a lawyer, a mechanical engineer. That's what I ended up doing, actually. My first
no,
semester in college was mechanical engineering. I got through, did calculus, all these things that were not required for journalism because after that semester, I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to go after what I actually want to do. And it was journalism specifically in sports. So that's kind of the driving factor for me. So I think, as Armenians, whether it's film, broadcast, or any other industry, I do feel like we have a very, very shared experience. Even for different Armenians in different backgrounds, whether you're Western, Eastern Armenian, I think we do have a very similar experience in our backgrounds.
yeah, I love hearing your story, man. That is you're genuinely like paving a path. You're gonna make it that much easier for the next Jasons to be able to point to you the way you can point to Elena and Araxia. So that's incredible, man. Good for
I,
you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I did want to just make sure that, some folks who might be watching this who maybe aren't Armenian or aren't really in the know with the Armenian community, just to give context, my big fat Armenian family, back in those days, you guys were selling out theaters in Glendale, right? You guys were selling out theaters and it was jam-packed with people with weeks on weeks of demand, right?
This is true. It's crazy to say this, but yeah, I mean, it was a completely zero budget movie that I put together again almost by accident. And when I had finished the movie, we wanted to screen it,
Mhm.
and I got Glendale High School to allow us to essentially book their auditorium. But we had to kind of bring in our own screen. We have to like go buy. I had to go purchase a projector from Best Buy, which I then returned for for free because I kind of have to. My parents, my aunt, my uncle manned the ticket booth. If you want me to really be candid with you, I to get the word out, I mean, we had a lot of interest just from YouTube, from people sharing the videos all over the world, honestly. But to get the interest in LA, Glendale is a very high Armenian population city, and there's a lot of high schools in Glendale. So what I ended up doing was creating all these flyers that I would put into the lockers of every high school. To get into these high schools, I kind of had to
Smart.
jump the fence, break in overnight. I swear I was politely breaking the law there, not disrespectfully putting all the fires. There's like these like Armenian organizations that would get together at times to time. There's something called the Takhtadjian Games, where
Hmm.
like thousands of Armenians gather and have this really lovely cultural event. My incredible lead actor Ejmin, we if you've seen the movie, it's a
Yes.
story about these old-fashioned Armenian parents, both played by one actor, so similar to Michael B in Sinners, playing a kind of over-the-top father, over-the-top mother, and their Americanized progressive teens and having a big cultural clash over a weekend trip to Palma Spring. But we had Edgebean kind of dress as the mom and essentially kind of create a ruckus at these events, like
Hmm.
like screaming and shouting and having fun and kind of doing like the Borat thing, and it was great.
Keep your distance.
Exactly, exactly. So, and all of these little like publicity stunts we did, um, kind of help get the word out, and then people showed up, but you don't know if people are going to show up, like it was, if you've ever thrown a birthday party and you're like, is anyone going to come? And then little by little, like dozens of people at a time became hundreds, became thousands, and people saw the movie. I always say this, I genuinely wasn't sure if people were going to like the movie. It was by design. I had written the movie to be the first 30 minutes very much like a sketch comedy movie. It was like the shorts where you're just seeing funny situations with a family, but over time the movie would deconstruct and kind of start telling a story about this intergenerational rift that exists, and kind of got dramatic and serious and maybe sad even at times, that wasn't necessarily something that you would expect. And I was shocked, Jason, that not only did people um seemed to enjoy it, people would clap in the middle of the movie, which is such a rare thing I've seen. And it really spoke to me. It really told me that we tried to strike a chord, and it seemed like it worked for some people. And I'm still proud of that movie, so proud of that movie. More proud than I certainly was back in the day. I think just because of I've come full circle as hopefully as an actualized adult.
That's so neat to hear. And you still keep in contact and you're still close with the people that you worked with for that film, right?
Of course, I mean, one of whom is my literal sister, Sev Ohanian, who never had any intention of being an actress. But when we were making one of the shorts, I was like, "Oh, hey, Ramala, are you free Saturday? We're gonna shoot a short film. I want someone to play the role of this daughter. The story is like an Armenian daughter who's about to go on a date with a guy who comes to pick her up, and he insists on meeting her dad, and it kind of becomes like this long, crazy night." And she was like, "Yeah, I'll come. I'll come. Like, we'll just have fun. We'll make a short film." And then when I realized I wanted to make the whole length, full length feature version of the movie, I was like, "Hey, Ramala, will you come?" Do this for many, many months now. And she was a trooper, and she does a great job acting in the film, and she's an incredibly established, actually entertainment attorney now, partner at a law firm. But I remember long after we had released the movie, like maybe many, many years after, we'd gone on like a family vacation to Sydney, Australia for New Year's, and we'd gone to like an Armenian banquet hall New Year's Eve celebration. People were literally lining up to approach Ramallah to take pictures with her because they were such fans of the movie,
Wow.
all those years ago on the other side of the planet. So it's so funny that um, my friends who had no intention of being actors ended up kind of having this little cult classic reputation around the industry. I mean, around our community, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it also kind of shows, right? No, not kind of. It definitely shows that there is a hunger in the Armenian community for the arts and for those movies, right? And I wanted to ask you about, Armenian Film Society. I know that page has been growing and it's been hosting, screenings and just how important that is for the Armenian community to have, an outlet like that and, show Armenians and non-Armenians about the successes and what we're doing in that industry.
Man, I don't have enough roses on the planet to give to Armin and Mary Karaglanian for that page, because it's one of the few endeavors I've seen that is so purely selfless. All they do is highlight the hard work from Armenian filmmakers and actors, writers, directors, everybody,
Yeah.
and they do it so lovingly. Armin is an incredibly learned filmmaker himself. He has a real reverence for the art form. Mary is just a total I was gonna say a word I probably shouldn't say. She's really good at what she does. She's a bad, blank.
Yeah.
Um,
You can curse on this.
okay, she's a real badass. I'll just be
There you
honest. And
go.
to see what they've been able to do, and the momentum they've reached, but now they're at a stage and a growth that they're able to start giving back. They're starting to host workshops, and they have a whole space now that we can all use. And I really feel like my personal growth is very much tied to them, to Armenian Film Society. I'm so grateful to them. And and yeah, I mean, they actually were the ones who hosted a 15-year anniversary screening of My Big Fat Family a couple years ago. And I was terrified because I was like, Armin, are you crazy? You guys are going to book Alex Theater? It's like a 1,200 seating auditorium. Why would you do this? Five people are going to show up. And he was right. And we sold out, and it was an incredible night. And everything they do, again, not just for me and Ali, but just for the entire industry. I think that's so important. Not to be cliche, but there's going to be some young Armenians out there who want to maybe pursue filmmaking, and being able to be exposed to the fact that other Armenians have been able to navigate this and do pretty okay thanks to Armin and Mary's efforts with AFS. That will make all the difference, because the truth of the matter is, Jason, like, there were Armenians who were incredibly iconic filmmakers in the Hollywood film industry 100 years ago. Massive movies that were directed by Armenian filmmakers like Ruben Mamoulian. They existed. We just kind of didn't know about them growing up. But thanks to AFS, people now know about them. And I wouldn't be surprised if in journalism, in your line of work, there was an Armenians who were really making serious waves back when.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't know about the Armenian at my station until I got to this station. She's retired now, but her name was Stephanie Barugian. She was the main anchor and reporter at this station, KC24 Fresno, for 42 years. And I didn't know
Wow.
anything about her until I got the job. And I'm like, you know, how did I not know about who Stephanie Barugian was? And then I looked more into it, and she did medical mission trips to Lebanon and Armenia. She was in Armenia during the 100th anniversary for the Armenian genocide. And I'm like, where is the Armenian community to highlight any of this type of stuff? So I think with time, that's going to happen, and with more access, with more social media, there will be more of that reveal, I guess, as far as like our history. But
You're doing
that
it
is an
right now,
example of
man.
it expanding for so many decades.
Yeah, man, you're doing. I'm gonna go look her up right now. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And
I mean,
now we unfortunately we are getting at the end of the show, and I wanted to make sure I asked you about something because at the time of this episode releasing, it'd be the week of the Oscar nominations being released, and Sinners is touted for at least 15 or so nominations. I mean, just tell me first of all, just how exciting that is. Looking forward to March 15th to be part of the Oscars.
well, we're not part of the Oscars yet, but
Almost,
it's
almost.
it's it's so exciting because I can swear you this. In the course of making the Film Centers, the number of times anybody brought up awards, whether it was for motivation or what if, literally, Jason, it was zero times. On one hand, we just didn't have the time, but more so, it just was not on anyone's mind. We were so committed to the work, and the possibility of it being an award contender was just not anywhere near the reality of what I thought it was going to be. And then the movie comes out, and all our emphasis is on is the audience finding the movie, and so I'm so grateful that they did. And everything else that's happening is just gravy on top, truly.
That's awesome, man. Well, I wish you nothing but the best in the future. I'm so excited for what you have coming up. I really am excited for everything you've been doing in your career and just everything that Proximity Media is doing, Armenian Film Society, everything in between. Unfortunately, we are running up on time. I wish I had like another hour with you. But Sev, thank you so much for being on the show. I hope I can have you on the show in the near future. We can talk a little bit more and dive into some more topics. But thank you again for being so gracious with your time, and congratulations again for all the success you guys have already accumulated and what's coming.
Jason, thank you, bro. Thank you for having me. Thanks for doing this. I'm a fan, bro. I'll be tuning in for sure.
Thank you so much, man.